So you're like a child that's wandered in the movie theater halfway through and you're wondering what's going on. This is Donny Cast on the 29th of June, 2022 on the Good Line, the Greater Good. I am your host, Walter, and remix to Ignition. Let's get into it today with our key six key takeaways from January 6th committee hearing, which is that nothing happened. There's not a lot to it. I can read them off to you. Trump officials worried about trouble. Again, not illegal. Trump attempted to take control of a presidential vehicle. This is fucking stupid. We'll get into that in a second. Trump turned violent when angry. Okay. We'll get into that in a second. Trump knew rioters had weapons and didn't care. Again, not illegal, but stupid. Trump allies are intimidating panel witnesses. Again, Trump allies. So is your target of the January 6th committee Trump or Trump's allies? Meadows Giuliani asked Trump for pardons. Again, we talked about this a little bit yesterday, where it just becomes an issue of everybody eventually knew the witch hunt was going to happen. The political powers had shifted, and the incoming administration was going to grind that axe. Why we're here a year and a half later discussing something that didn't happen. So as I talked about, we'll flip this a little bit. So the January 6th Tuesday super special that happened yesterday was nothing. It was a whole bunch of hearsay nonsense. The word desperation comes to my mind. So we had this former intern for the Trump administration by the name of Cassidy Hutchinson, who worked for Trump's last chief of staff, Mark Meadows. Her testimony changes nothing. The only thing it proves more of is Trump is an asshole, which is something we already know. So in this case, we have this Daily Wire article. Daily Wire is obviously leaning. Top former White House lawyer delivers devastating blow to Cassidy Hutchinson's testimony. What Eric Hirschman said is he wrote the note that she alleges to have written herself, which contradicts some of her testimony. They also have in this article on the Daily Wire that the Secret Service is expected to deny Hutchinson's claims about Trump lunging through and trying to grab a steering wheel or assaulting other Secret Service agents. I can tell you from experience that like some of the stuff in her testimony revolving around how the Secret Service agents reacted to Trump are sort of contradictory to how protective services are supposed to function. Your principal, that would be Trump in this case, he's still your boss. He still calls the shots. And when you have to make a decision involving their safety, you're basically putting your job on the line, that it is time for me to treat my principal no longer as my boss, but as someone that I have to slam my fist into their stomach, put their head down to the ground, and run them out of a bad situation because they are the person at stake. So when Miss Hutchinson decided to say that like Trump wanted to go back to the rally and the secret agent said no, that's sort of not how it's supposed to go down in this case. What's supposed to go on is the Secret Service agents should just not respond. There should be no argument. The detail leader, there's a detail leader and a shift leader and all these other positions, if I'm remembering my training correctly. And in this case, like a lot of other people would make this decision. It would not be necessarily the guy driving the vehicle. It wouldn't be that guy's decision. And if Trump wants to turn the vehicle around, more than likely, like that's his call. If it's Trump's desire to stop the vehicle at any place in the middle of a 5 freeway in California, which goes north and south from Mexico to Canada, and just get out and start wandering around, that's the principal's prerogative, and as the detail you adapt accordingly. So it doesn't matter if he wants to go into the middle of a rally where everybody's saying Allah Akbar and waving their AKs and their RPGs. That's not your prerogative. Your prerogative is say, hey sir, I don't think that's a good idea. And when he says, I don't care what you think, I'm going in there, then you do your job and protect the principal. So what she's saying doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Not only does it not make a lot of sense, it's being actively, I guess, contradicted at this point. And it doesn't prove that anything criminal took place. If you were to take her at her word, it just means Trump's a petulant grown-up child, which is something we sort of already knew. So that was your Tuesday, January 6th super special that did nothing, and it just goes to show that they know they're getting nothing out of it. But the story that did go on yesterday and today behind the scenes is Ghislaine Maxwell was sentenced to 20 years. She's probably not going to do the 20. Well, she's literally not going to do the 20 because I guess she's already been held in confinement for 2 years. And then with, credits and time served, she's probably not going to do anywhere close to the 20. She's more than likely going to go to some sweetheart white collar federal facility. So whatever. And I find it very interesting that Miss Maxwell here, a former associate of Jeffrey Epstein, is was sentenced for sex trafficking, but none of her clients were convicted, indicted, or even named. Again, as far as I know. But moving forward, as you can see over on the right hand side of the screen, we also had someone else that was sentenced for sex trafficking today. The R. Kelly, the former, or I guess he's still technically an R&B singer, at 55 years of age, was given 30 years for being a convicted sexual predator and sex trafficking and all this other stuff with underage girls. So it's interesting that good old R. Kelly. I guess it's because he's black and Ghislaine Maxwell's white. It may have something more to do with the fact that she has a lot more connections within the political apparatus. But whatever. A black man doing 30 for these things and a white woman doing 20. I'm sure that someone's got a joke about that someplace. Let's see. So now we're going to transition into more sex trafficking stuff, and this time involving the federal government. Good old Javier Becerra, who's the former Attorney General for California. Again, California is a cancer that ruins everything. He is now the Secretary of Health and Human Services. Don't ask me how the Attorney General of California translates into any type of competency or qualification for being the Secretary of Health and Human Services. Well, he's come out and said, he's considering having abortion clinics operate on federal lands, which is theoretically possible. The Hyde Amendment is a little dubious because it does allow for some abortions when it's necessary to save the woman's life. But what the Hyde Amendment does is federal funds cannot be used to fund abortions. Caveat asterisk. And that's part of what putting abortion clinics on federal land would be, is there's no federal law at this point, from what I understand, to prohibit certain abortions, unlike some of the states where they're just like cutting it down all willy-nilly. Like, so in this case, like, you could potentially have abortions going on in federal law. You couldn't use the federal funding for elective abortions. You could only do it in certain dire situations. But I will just probably go ahead and say that, like, it's just going to allow certain people that were to be conducting abortions on federal land to be very loosey-goosey with their definition of save the woman's life. Moving forward with that, we have the idea that this is, depending on what the federal lands are that they're going to be using, it's going to get very dicey in regards to state rights, and it's going to turn into a fight that's probably going to go down the road of more decentralization and a greater adversarial relationship between the federal government and the states. You'll know this is getting bad when both sides start threatening about taking taxes away one way or another. In the meantime, it's this administration trying to skirt something. It is technically the system working as intended. It's just rather dubious how certain people are getting around this. And to continue down this rabbit hole, we see that the Pentagon will keep performing abortions on bases, federal land, that are consistent with federal law. Again, to protect the life of the mother, it is allowable. This more affects the family members and other civilians on these federal installations. It's again just going to cause the decision of what constitutes a mother's life to get broader in the case of certain people that want to get this done, that are ideologically consistent with wanting to be de facto activists when it comes to giving out abortions. Um, really not much different than the Javier Bacara nonsense going on, as I just got a text message if you're wondering why I kind of trailed off. So, Supreme Court narrows ruling for tribes in Oklahoma. I think I missed one on this one. I may not have. Who knows? I think there was another ruling about that the federal government is listing information for young girls about how and where to receive abortions when they're under 15 years of age. Way to go with taxpayer money. So anyway, this does segue into this as the Supreme Court narrows ruling for tribes in Oklahoma. This case is Oklahoma versus Castro Huerta. The details of it really aren't too relevant. It's some shitbag that was not a Native American, an Indian, feather not dot, who was uh, abusing his stepdaughter by keeping her malnourished. Because of the case of McGirt versus Oklahoma, which I did read a few years back, it basically declared Eastern Oklahoma to be Indian lands, which is bullshit. It was a bad court decision back, and I think it's 2018 when this came out, or no, excuse me, it's 2020 when it came out. So anyway, in this court decision, it declared Eastern Oklahoma to be Indian country, which means that Indians in Eastern Oklahoma could only be tried by tribal courts or the federal government, depending on the severity of the law. The other thing that it became dubious about was non-Indians did they need to be tried in state courts or federal courts? And the Supreme Court came out and ruled in this case that it allows state authorities to prosecute non-Indians who commit crimes against Indians on the reservations. So it narrowed the McGirt versus Oklahoma case, which allowed basically said Oklahoma is no longer a state; it's Indian country when it comes to Indians. And all this did was narrow it and say, no, it's only for Native Americans. This was bad law in the first place. As I pointed out, I had big issues with it because I thought it violated the 14th Amendment as well as other laws that had superseded McGirt before it came out. Again, the 14th Amendment, the government should pass no laws to basically like all animals are equal. Some animals are more equal than others. In this case, like Native Americans who are now U.S. citizens. They weren't U.S. citizens back when. They are now U.S. citizens, and you're passing a law to basically say we are going to treat some U.S. citizens different than others that violates the 14th Amendment. Good old Grolich, who had some bias in the original case. I think he recused himself. But anyway, the axe to grind behind this was that he did not like the way that the federal government had just basically not carried out their contracts with the Native American tribes back when. This just became a mess. The dissent in the case had to do with like the chaos that it would cause. Yes, it's going to cause chaos, but that's not necessarily a good legal argument. But the main thing that I remembered at the time about the original McGirt versus Oklahoma case that is narrowed by Oklahoma versus Castro Huerta is that in the majority of opinion, it maintained that U.S. has sovereignty over its lands. So the U.S. government has sovereignty over Indian country in the first place. I felt like it was going to come back and bite people in the butt in the future. It is. At the time, I was thinking about the autonomous zones in Seattle, for instance, and we're going to talk about Seattle being the shithole that it is. But now it may end up having precedent to be set when it comes to the abortion issue, federal lands being used to carry out abortions over state land. So it's just an interesting case going on in that regard. There's a lot going on, but moving forward with the stupidity of the world, we have another Daily Mail article, if it will load. In this case, it's CVS and Rite Aid. Limit morning after pills to 3 per woman as demand surges after Roe versus Wade. Walgreens sells out of ones available for delivery. I'll just say right now, I'm very sure that this article is altered from when I found it yesterday because it buries the lead, which was originally in the article that said CVS said it still had enough pills, but the limit was in place to ensure equitable access. That is a nice way of saying that the Karens were hoarding too many of the morning after pills. to use as prophylactics for their sexual activities, and certain businesses realized that they would not be able to have enough of the morning after pill to hand out to certain neighborhoods where eugenics are continuing to go on, i.e. the hood. So we needed to make sure that we had enough pills to go into the hood to continue our eugenics programs. That's what this says. So way to go, CVS and Rite Aid. Instead of doing your duty to sell pills where sell pills to where the demand is, you're going to equitably sell pills to people that whatever. Way to go. You're not a real company. Um, let's see. And continuing on with the Dobbs decision, the Roe versus Wade decision. So you have a Los Angeles 29-year-old trans woman, former Navy sailor, uh, trans woman being a man, performatively pretending to be a woman, beats a 13-year-old girl to place first in New York City women's skateboarding contest. Yeah. So fuck you. No one cares if you're a woman, or if you're a child. They just care about validating themselves, searching for that dopamine feedback loop. And this story, I found it yesterday. I couldn't find the same one I read yesterday. Between the two or three of this article that I did read, they were all ideologically all over the place. This one is from the Yahoo News. It's a little bit more to a right wing bent. The one that I read yesterday was a little bit more neutral, but it omitted information. And I did read a more left wing one, but in this case, it's talking about a Air Force female captain on Thursday became the service's first special tactics officer, donning the elite red beret after completing a grueling 3-month training course. It also points in here that there were a lot of concerns over the fact that she was able to do the course twice. She had been removed from the course for quitting during some portion of the physical training. The complaints being that she was giving preferential treatment to pass, and she had. It says the comments argued the female airman lacked motivation after she lagged behind the group, and even after trying to lead the team. I do not believe this is a drive issue. I do concur it's a physical fitness issue, which was part of what the complaints were that were investigated, and they found no. We investigated ourselves, and we found that we did nothing wrong. Anyway, she was giving, it's called in the military called being recycled. When I was in, at least, she was given multiple opportunities to be recycled in different classes until she basically won. In this case, it says the female airman whose background is in cyber operations. That's part of the reason why she was given multiple opportunities. It says at the bottom to finish. Because she has unique abilities, i.e., she's in cyber, to go be part of these Air Force Special Forces. Uh, uh, anyway, I can tell you from experience again that she was 100% given special treatment. Whether or not that treatment was because she was a woman or she was an officer, I can't tell you. They will give officers extra special chances to pass because politically it is not something that they want to do to fail officers. I imagine it's even extended further when it comes to failing female officers. So yeah, she got fucking grandfathered through. Almost, especially if the information provided in this is true, where she failed to pass first time go, and then we're given the opportunity to come back. A lot of times in these more selective type of branches of the military, like special forces, you're not given multiple times to go through, especially if they don't deem you of being the quality to come back and try again. Other times they will give you the opportunity to try again, especially if injuries are involved, because of the fact that like they like your personality, but bad things do happen to good people. In this case, it does appear that she was giving multiple opportunities, and I question if she came in and she was not able to meet the physical fitness standards. There's a lot going on here. But we translate from the Air Force, uh, the Air Force pushing through their first special operator to let's gear up for World War III, knowing that we're not allowing our best and our brightest to be in special operations positions because of either rank or their sex. In this case, it matters because why don't you just let some 29-year-old dude beat out some 13-year-old girl to become a special Air Force special operator? In this case, NATO to boost rapid response unit from 40,000 to 30,000 troops in apparent response to Putin's war. Yeah, because NATO is it's a dying leviathan that's attempting to justify its existence by using new Russia as a proxy for the Soviet Union, because it should have been disbanded in the early to mid 90s. But fuck it, there's too much corruption and money going around and power for anybody to walk away from that table. So as we continue on with good old NATO formally invites Sweden and Finland to join alliance after Turkey lifts objections. And it actually says in here that more steps are ahead before the Nordic countries can become members. Similar to memberships with the European Union, prospective countries must adhere to several reforms, which is just code for, hey, let's strip you of your national sovereignty before you can come in. And continuing down, hey, fuck you. We have two stories involving Russian gold. U.S. targets Russian gold imports, which is their second largest portion of their economy, and the defense industry among new sanctions. So let's choke to death Russia, instead of giving them their way out by making everything worse. Because why wouldn't they just double down when their whole initial argument was, you're not treating us fairly. I couldn't find this anyplace else. This involves RT, Russia Today, so take that how you want. Definitely state propaganda. Russian gold arrives in Switzerland. Again, Switzerland is neutral, and it's challenges for Swiss neutrality against the EU and NATO, which they are to certain lesser or greater extents allies with, even though they're neutral. And it just becomes more and more a battle between the new world order versus national interest going on in Europe, between Russia and the EU, NATO. And Switzerland really is being put over the barrel of, you decide, are you neutral or are you with the new world order? And Switzerland has come out and said that they are slowly but surely capitulating when it comes to Russian sanctions. So obviously we're getting an idea of how neutral, all neutrality is equal. Some neutrality is more equal than others. As I point out with my co-hosts from time to time, like, wearing different identities on your sleeve only leads to them eventually being put into conflict. And then at that point, you get to show your true colors. And that's what's going on with Switzerland. So this is our daily get the fuck out of California if you haven't yet. So California law requiring property owners to pay 1 month rent to tenants being evicted. A federal appeals court has upheld a law requiring property owners who legally evict tenants to pay 1 month of the tenant's rent in order to reduce the cost of relocation. There is a little bit of a side story to this. It involves property owners basically using or lying to get people out of locations so they can raise the rent. In this case, it's likely going to at least be pushed to the Supreme Court. Whether or not the Supreme Court decides that they're going to listen to it or not, it becomes a Fourth Amendment issue versus individual contracts. If I am a tenant and I don't write this into my contract, should I just have the ability to have the state force it on a property owner? It's California's attack at private property. And, why would a state that already has a housing crisis going on, this is just further indication of why would I want to own property in California, and then why would I want to legally rent it to anybody when the state is basically saying I have less and less control over my own property. Again, there's also issues that are going to be brought up about due process, because can the state just basically come and violate my Fourth Amendment, take my property without due process? These are the type of things that will come up. I don't really know if the Supreme Court will touch it, because of the fact that, like, do they want to go down the rabbit hole yet? And this court at least currently has shown that they're going to bring out their pee-pee slapping sticks. So I wouldn't be surprised if they take this case up. But then again, it's the Supreme Court and they're all, kind of cowards. So I don't know. Um, let's see. California is Donald Trump don't trust California. California is asshoe. So we have the names, address of every concealed weapons holder in California exposed. Fresno Sheriff's Office confirms. If you fucking think this was done on accident, I have a bridge to sell you in San Francisco. This comes on the tail end of the Bruin decision by the Supreme Court, which basically said that states had to weigh all claims or all submissions to get a concealed weapons permit equally. They could not just dismiss you because they didn't think you had a good enough explanation behind it. That's not the state's job. So in this case, every single concealed weapons permit in California was exposed with all the personal information behind it. And again, fuck you. This was done on purpose. This is activism going on in government, and I've had some conversation behind the scenes where like, I don't care what state you're in, blue or red. You're buying a gun puts you on a list. Getting a concealed weapons permit puts you on a list. It's more listing, and if you don't think this was punitive, I don't know what the fucking tell you. Like, why would you put yourself on a list at this point when the government is even at the best, the government has showed that they're incompetent. At worst, they've shown themselves to be like very, very tyrannical at this point. So, yeah, I would only move to a state. If you're not in a state that allows for constitutional carry and ghost guns, that's the state that you should be looking to move to because you're not going to be on a list. To be honest with you, I was looking those states up last night. Let's see. West Hollywood votes defending the sheriff's department despite soaring crime. They have a big homeless problem. This is basically LA, because fuck you. And some LGBT council member spearheaded cutting the sheriff's department budget so they could put more like unarmed security on the streets because fuck you. And this is California. That's basically like we're going to make it very difficult for you to have guns and carry concealed and protect yourself, and we're going to take away more of the ability to protect yourself, and then we're going to give some of the rights to criminals and have open air drug markets. And California, fuck you. At the end of the day, that's all I'm going to say on that. To more, let's misappropriate funds by our government because the government snout has only the ability to make things worse. We have good old Seattle public schools budget for more funds for racial equity programs and literacy. Obviously this is not coming up right now. Hopefully I will try it again and see if I can get it to come up. Anyway, to bury the lead, 60% of Seattle schools, or 60% of Seattle students are below proficiency standards in math and science. The number increased to 70% for Black students and 82% for Native American students. And then they're going to cut the budget and they're going to give it to racial equity programs over math and science. So yep, that's where your money's going. Fuck you, Seattle. Enjoy your autonomous zone because everybody else realizes that you're just a cancer that's slowly withering the state of Washington away until nothing. Let's see. Oh, we have Brown University. So if you aren't aware, and I've pointed out this before, we do not have private education in this country because the moment a private school like Brown takes public funding, they become entwined with public policy. And that means in order for Brown to get this money, they take the strings attached in this case, where they got threatened with by a lawsuit going after, was it Title VI of the Civil Rights Act, because they were discriminating based on skin, because they've lost the ability to run their private university the way that they want to. Normally, I would say you're a piece of shit, but yes, it is your prerogative to segregate your races if that's what you want to do because you're a private institution. But the moment you take those public funds, fuck you, you're public. And Brown got egg on their face, got threatened with a lawsuit, and said, "Oh, we're going to drop that rule for a course because we have so many bright and shiny, competent, qualified individuals running our university that they would think that that's a good idea, and they think that they could win." So to end today, we have AOC, good old Ocasio Cortez, dodges when Colbert asked her about running for president. She said, "We need to focus on keeping a democracy." When asked, she said, "I don't know." Um, yeah, she turns 35 a month before the election in 2024. She's going to run 100 and fucking 10%. Not only that, I will say, oh, please, little baby Jesus in tuxedo t-shirt, let this happen. This will be fucking glorious. Oh, how hilarious that this fucking walking, human moron. Um, uh, the sound bites to this will be glorious, awesome. Lobotomy is the word I was looking for. So in this case, this is definitely how this works in the first place. She has a PR team, she has a campaign, and they're floating this out there to see how this works. And this is how, as a politician, a rock star politician, celebrity politician, she has the access to go on Colbert. He gets to know ahead of time, float the idea, and she gets to play coy because she's fucking retarded. And yeah, please, little baby Jesus, please, little baby Jesus. There cannot be a better candidate to go up against Trump or DeSantis than AOC. Oh, please, little baby Jesus, you gotta let this happen. You gotta hopefully she runs. Hopefully she's the nominee. Oh God, it would be the greatest thing ever. I don't care what goes on. If they allow this to occur, we should all laugh as we ride the missile to hell. So anyway, Donny cast on the 29th of June, 2022. Obviously remix to Ignition. Let's nuke. Let's glass the planet. Nothing matters. Yeah, tomorrow.